One more question for you guys from me, which is, how does your court relate to The Hague, the Court of The Hague? And is there some kind of, if you rule one thing and The Hague rules something else, I mean, what are we talking about here?
Right. There's no conflict because they have assumed jurisdiction over completely different things. Now, first of all, nothing would prevent two legitimate courts connected to statutory authority and international law. It would be great if, two courts were doing it. But here's the deal. The Hague, that's a treaty court. All the courts you've heard of, The Hague, that's basically ICJ, I think they mean, the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court. These are the UN courts, they're treaty courts. The judges are not bad. There's nothing wrong with the judges. And they're all good, honest judges, but some of them express frustration that they feel their hands are a bit tied too. See, they have a charter that limits them to the consent of countries, which is the system that I call the fraud. The court's under fraud. The concept that the court was created with is a fraud. The judges themselves feel that they've been trapped into something that they can't really use. Their hands are tied because, well, it's a treaty court. You're screwed. So you see, those courts are there. They don't have any worldwide, exclusive authority on things. In fact, they have ruled themselves out of exclusive authority because they refuse to exert jurisdiction. The Convention on Independence of the Judiciary says they could have absolute, supreme, universal jurisdiction above and over every government on the planet. But because in their charter they chose to let themselves be limited by the countries themselves, they're screwed. They might as well have thrown away their whole authority right off the bat, which is pretty much what happened. So,
well, there are those who are claiming, though, that the Hague International Court is supposedly exerting some authority over governments. I mean, there has actually been claims of that sort. Now, whether that has ever happened, I don't know.
They do some, but only if the countries consent, you see. And the statistic for enforcement of these courts, ICJ and ICC, the average statistic is 20%. Actually 21% enforcement only by voluntary compliance. These courts, I've looked at their, charters and their websites. These courts admit that they have no enforcement efforts. They don't even try. They don't even so much as open a committee or a department at all. They admit that they don't even try to monitor their judgments. Their official, publicly declared positions are that once we issue a judgment, it's the victim plaintiff's problem to try to get it enforced. And what they recommend is let some civil advocacy groups, let some NGOs enforce.
Okay,
That's
but why
the
do you
ACIJ has built-in enforcement departments with a whole category of compliance judges dedicated to just overseeing enforcement measures.
Okay, but why do you say that you would the ACIJ, the court you're involved with, would deal with completely different matters than, say, an international court such as The Hague? For example, let's take the Nuremberg trials, just for example. Mm-hmm. Okay? Are you saying The Hague would have nothing to do with that?
I don't know the nuances of that, but here's the real short answer that gets really to the heart of it. When any court is formed based on its charter and whatever authorities it has, it can choose how it's going to accept cases, from who it can accept cases, right? So these other courts in their statutes have limited themselves. They say they say that they won't hear any case unless it has exhausted all domestic remedies. That means they're going to force you, the victim plaintiff, to go through every level of every court until you're broke and bankrupt 100 times over before they'll even let you file. And then they have statutes saying, and only countries can file a case. Only countries can file a case. You, an individual, can't. That's the fault of their charter and their statutes. Now, the ACIJ court has refused to limit itself. The ACIJ court, in its founding document, says it will be a court of first instance. You do not have to go to any other court in the world. anywhere. You can go first directly to them. Cry directly to mommy because mommy loves you. You don't have to waste your time going to all the neighbors first. Go to your mom. She'll give you a hug.
Okay.
I mean, honestly,
well,
it's the court's fault for limiting itself, and so ACIJ refuses to limit itself.